So some of you may have joined me yesterday. I talked about weather flying. Today's kind of a fun day. And this is, always get asked, well, what's it like to work in Alaska? What's it like to fly in Alaska? Randy's right. I was born in the deep south, a town called Ketchikan, and I grew up in Haines. I was about 2 years old when I moved there. Southeast Alaska weather is known to be really bad. We've got glaciers, oceans, Japanese current, mountains, and wind all together. So the city of Juneau, I spent about 20 years in Juneau. I had my own air taxi there. Is a prime example. We've got a glacier 5 miles away that has a downwind with cold weather, and it shoots the river right literally at the end of the runway. They have to put riprap in to protect the runway from the river that hits salt water that actually comes in, and the Japanese currents off the coast there. So we get some of the warmth that comes in through the currents, which causes a fog bank. So there are times where the one end of the airport is open and the other end is not, and that happens a lot in Southeast Alaska. Well, as I went on in my flying career, I started flying out west. At one point I was out there, I did herring spotting, and then I started flying for lodges and stuff, because what I found is that down in Southeast Alaska, you're pretty limited. You know, there's guys, they all have their niches, and then the lodges out west would need people. So I'd go out there and I'd fly. And eventually I sold my company, and then 9/11 happened. And then I started going out west, and when I moved back to Haines, I'd go out and I fly for Copper Valley Air out of Gulkana. And then I would also go out and fly for lodges. I've flown for a couple lodges. I'm returning. You'll see some photographs here from both Rapids Camp that's in King Salmon, Alaska, on the road, and then Alaska Rainbow Lodge also, which is up on the Kvichak River. The particular picture, the starting and foul weather, that is deliberate. We fly in weather that's not quite good enough for the ducks and geese, and it seems like we're out there flying. Yesterday, everybody was talking about how bad the weather was. You know, I left home day before yesterday. I left home at about 8 o'clock. I take off out of home, and the weather, I had good visibility. I had about 10 miles underneath, but it was right at 500 feet above. When I climbed up, I was at 500 feet with my tail in the deal. I'm in uncontrolled airspace at my strip, so flying low is kind of common for us. This particular picture, I chose this because you've got a former speaker, he's been here multiple times, Bill Rusk, and this was his first day out steelheading. It was about an hour and a half into the trip. So that baby was 36 inches, which qualifies actually for the trophy fish in Alaska. We caught about 3 or 4 of those that day and turned them all loose. But this is kind of the fun part of life up in Alaska. I do have my ATP. I was just mentioning that those of you who are familiar with today's terminology, I had my first technically advanced aircraft I bought in the late 80s. It was a Super Cub that had a Loran in it. And I thought I was fat turkey with that thing. I mean, I had a Loran. So, but I got my ATP back in the days with a Apache with a Geronimo kit on it. It had amphibious floats, and I made my second approach that he killed my engine, and he killed the engine as I'm trying to do my intercept, and it took me forever to get the engine shut down. And somehow the gods came together. I made the best 2 instrument approaches of my entire life. And he says, let's go over and hold. And I'm like, I got a third approach to do. He goes, don't worry about it. Because it was an amphib, of course. We did water work, we did land work, we did a couple approaches. He gave me my ATP. And I got multi-engine land and multi-engine sea. I have a grand 125 hours of multi-engine time. I have about, just barely enough instrument time to get my ATP. So that I did that about 30 years ago. I've been current 18 or 20 months total since then in IFR. So that gives you an idea how much VFR flying I do with over 9,000 hours total. I'm commercial privileges, single engine land, single engine sea, and I've got a single engine CFI, not a double I, and not an MEI. So I'm a pretty basic guy. But this is kind of what we live for up there. And this was after work. I flew a full day, and then Bill picked me up with his Super Cub and flew me out, and we went fishing for the day. So, so next slide. Well, he's working. Yep. Next slide. All right. So, day in the life of an air taxi pilot. This is what I do. A lot of the companies I work for, we start at 8 o'clock. Some of that's daylight. Some of that's the bosses have decided, you know, we're going to take it easy. When I had my own air taxi, it's been long enough ago, there were mornings where it was be at the airplane, airborne by 5 a.m., get home at 11 p.m. Just you're flying all day because of people trying to make jets and schedules. But now that I work for other people, I get a smile and go, yeah, we can't do that. 6 o'clock alarm, wake up. First thing I do is grab my computer and I check weather. Just in the habit so I can learn the patterns. But of course, the dog's barking or whining at you because she gets fed at 6 o'clock. If you look under FAR Part 135, Section Delta Oscar Golf, you will see that you must have a canine on the premises at all times if you're going to run an air taxi in Alaska. Preferably 2. Both of them should bark when new customers come in the office so you don't have the ding-dong alarms. You have the dog barks. So you get the dog fed. This is mine, was my dog there. And I'm down here to get another one because she had to go away here last year. She got too old. So take a shower, prep your gear for the anticipated day. You know that all you're going to do today is you're going to just fly over to the next lake and pick a couple people up and bring them home. You'll be done by 10 o'clock. So on your day bag, you're going to have at least enough clothing so that if you get wet, you can get yourself dry, or you give it to your clients because they're all soaking wet. You're going to have a lunch in your bag. You want to make sure you got a lunch. Got to have a good book because you're done at 10, but they're going to make you sit there, so you got to have something to read, right? So you have this day bag that you're going to carry, and you're going to upgrade it depending on the weather. In the fall time, you have warmer clothes. In the summertime, you might put a set of flip-flops in there, whatever. So you got your gear bag. Make some, go into the pilot room. A lot of our world, we're finally changing to where we're doing shift work, and a lot of pilots are transient or they live in other towns. So we all have bunk houses or bunk rooms or, some way to accommodate, and a lot of times a community kitchen. So you're in there chatting with the pilots, having a good time, get some food. Might even slip into the office and grab your flight schedule to double check because, you just never know. At 5 o'clock in the morning, they're going to get a phone call, emergency phone call. And sometimes I'll slip out after breakfast before the company meeting and I'll pre-flight my airplane. All right? So that's pretty common, right? And then here's what's actually going to happen. First thing you find out is that the generator that powers everything that your alarm clock fit on, of course, it broke. So you look outside, and I'm the one shooting the video, by the way. That's the boss standing there. This was actually at the lodge, but we had to cut every boat loose and wash them up on the shore before they sank at the dock. We finally cut the otter loose. You can see the big otter sitting there. We had to finally cut the otter loose, and he took off. And I'm not showing the video, but he took off in about. If he started over at the other hangar, at the corner of the other hangar, he was airborne by the corner of this hangar. It was absolutely nothing, and he went over and parked it at the airport because literally the wind was breaking the dock apart. The wind was pushing the otter. So. Power failure, you feed the dog no matter what. You're not going to take a shower because you don't have time. You grab yesterday's gear bag because, you just don't have time to repack that day, and you run to your morning meeting, or you run out on the dock and you fix your airplanes. Then you got an 8 a.m. company briefing. At Copper Valley Air, everybody, all the pilots, everybody gets together and we have a conversation. We talk about the weather, we look up the web cameras. And sometimes we'll look at 15 or 20 web cameras depending where everybody's going from Gulkana. So we're on the due north of Valdez, Alaska. And flying the Beaver on floats there during hunting season, I will quite often fly clear out to Ptarmigan Lake, which is on the Canadian border. So that flight takes all 3 tanks full. So I've got 2 35 gallons and a 25-gallon tank in the belly, and I literally pop those tanks sometimes just to lighten them up. But the one day I had 2 groups to pick up, so I had an extra takeoff in a Beaver. If you ever fly a Beaver, it takes 5 gallons to take that airplane off. So you plan 5 gallons for it. She burns 30 gallons an hour. All the books say 25, they burn 30 gallons an hour. You will be short if you don't trust that. So I go an hour and a half out, hour and a half back, and I carry that one day had 45 gallons of fuel in the cabin going out that I poured in the tanks once I got out there. So these are things, you're checking web cameras, because the one day there I went through one pass, and coming home, I could see from 20 miles out, the pass was absolutely white. I'm not getting back through there. The last trip through there, I'd gone through with and a lightning storm dropped on me in the middle, and all I could do was shut everything off and pray as I went through. So I ended up having to go south through McCarthy and back around. So look at the web cameras, call locals. Believe it or not, when you're in Alaska, you've got 2 kinds of locals. You got the kinds that call you up and go, don't come, it's foggy, it's rainy, we'll last another 5 days. You got the other areas over in Crooked Creek. Plane couldn't land, too windy. Came back the next mail day, plane can't land, too windy. The guys are calling up, hey, we need this, we're out of food, we got you. All right, what's windsock look like? Well, it's kind of going straight. He goes, look, when the windsock is hanging down, give me a call. Next day, windsock hanging down. Okay, I'm on my way. The guy comes in and he's just bouncing all over. He's like scratching his head. He can't figure this out. He gets it on the ground. And this is a no kidding story. And he steps out of the plane, and the plane's rocking like this. And he's like, what in the world's going on? He walks over to the windsock. The guy had gone out and put rocks in the windsock to hang the windsock down. And no joke. So anyway, call the weather service, check the weather, all that. Sometimes they're really accurate out in certain areas of Alaska. The National Weather Service can tell you to the hour. And out in Sitka, we were able to track storms where we would be fogged in, and we would tell people, look, at 5:30, it's going to open up. We're going to have just enough time to run out and get your people and get back. We'll be back by 6:30. And they'd be laughing at us. And sure enough, we'd get this opening, get out and get the people. We'd confirm our pilot assignments. Again, I mentioned about the changes. There were a number of times where things happened. We get a phone call, hey, we got a moose down out at such and such, and we scratched out a little runway on this gravel bar. Can you come pick the moose up for us? True story. So you have to expect changes. So that day bag I talked about, you always planned that you're not going to get home until the next morning. Spare pair of socks is my little bitty pilot bag that I just carry no matter what. That bag has a spare pair of socks and a toothbrush at all times. Discuss recent knowledge of areas. If you've ever flown out there in Western Alaska, you have no idea what can happen. Literally, somebody will decide that they're moving their dozer, and they'll drive right down the middle of the runway, and they'll forget and leave the ripper down, and they'll tear the whole runway out. And it's all gravel, so all you got to do is run the grader, but it takes some time. You got 3 feet of snow that night. The grader's not going to get out. The road crew aren't going to get out there for 3 more days. So take the ski plane, not the wheel plane. Things like that. Discuss aircraft particulars. How many people have ever flown 135 aircraft before? Oh, a few of you. All right, well, there's those little things that are airworthy, like, the prop governor's running away, and, we need this fixed. And then there's those little things that are like, something kind of seemed weird, like the fuel gauge was bouncing strange, but it said Cessna on it, so it's normal for Cessna. So, you might talk about certain things about the airplane, or, hey, I flew that airplane and I let the air out of the tires because I was taking off, going into mud. You might want to put the air back in the tires before you fly out to that other airstrip. And then discuss passengers. I had on the float plane in the Beaver, when you're trying to get on and off float planes, sometimes they're not the easiest for people with mobility issues. And we had some cabins that were resort cabins, and we had people that were in their 80s, could hardly walk, and they want to go out to their cabin. And this one particular family, their son was in his 50s, and he helped them. And so on that flight, I'd always tell dispatchers, look, I need an extra half hour to load and unload. And they're like, well, what's going on? His parents are going out. Oh, okay. Well, these folks, they've been going out there. They built this cabin back however long ago. And it's like, all right, as an air taxi, it's my job to help them get out there. So we did a couple of things. One of the things we had was a ramp for dogs, because the older people are all bringing their old dogs that are just as stove up as they are. And so we had a really, it's like, hey, these people are on the list, you need to accommodate them. Or this particular individual, when you pick them up, they're going to actually have a beaver load sitting there, but you're taking the 206. So be prepared to tell the people, look, cut your load in half. So those are things we would do. This particular photograph, some guys were trying to bison hunt, and they showed up, and the one guy was used to sheep hunt with us every year. He might still be doing it. I didn't fly for him last year during sheep season, but they wanted to go bison hunting. They couldn't get across the river with their snow machines, and they're like, have you guys seen any places? And I'm like, why don't we just drop you off with a ski plane? And they're like, let's do it. They didn't take a stove for their tent. It was 40 below, and went 40 below every night that they were there for 5-6 days. And they were fine, just, the way they were. So, 8:30, dispatch begins calling the people and telling them, hey, we're not going to be there on time. So that's one of the important things. 9 o'clock at Copper Valley, I have to drive about 40 minutes to get to the airplane. So I would take off and head to the plane, even if the weather was bad, just in case. And I'd pre-flight. Here's one of the important things. When you're on weather hold, and especially if your first trip is a 2-3 hour flight round trip, you don't want to dump all your fuel in and get ready for that flight, because invariably what happens is that the place 20 miles away opens up. And so if you've got an extra 400 pounds of fuel in the belly of the Beaver, and your 20-minute flight brings a 1,400 pound load to fly, now you're in trouble. You're way overweight, you're trying to drain fuel, or you're telling your customers, hey, you know what, we can't haul you. So in a weather hold situation, I'll wait till the last minute to fuel my airplane. There's 1,000 discussions with dispatch as weather's changing about, hey, can we change these people, that people, and rearrange the day. The local terrain, weather patterns make a big difference with our mountains and lakes and stuff, and especially in the area we fly out. A lot of places, the mountains make a big difference. So the north area has good weather, the south area has bad weather today, and so you're changing things all the time. Dispatch really needs to let people know if you're changing it up. If your afternoon flights, you have to do those in the morning to get them in or out. They need to be early on calling up. And so sometimes as a pilot, you kind of have to give the dispatch, this is how I see the order of the day going, and then make yourself really scarce, because you just dropped, you dropped the equivalent of coming up to the pilot as he's just loaded 2,000 pounds of gear into airplanes, coming up to the pilots and going, we're changing this. We need you to unload all the airplanes, and then we're going to have you fly 5 minutes over here, come back, and then reload the airplane. So, it's one of those. By 10:10, I'm hopefully at the airplane. I'm tossing my gear. I don't go anywhere without survival gear. Absolutely anywhere. I carry a sleeping bag. I carry some spare food. I carry a camp stove with me. I have a sleeping pad with me and a book, honest to God. And I have so many times, and make sure you have, crew written on your bag. I have a red dry bag that I carry with me. Plus, I carry my day bag, which has got my knife, a knife and my Leatherman and all the pilot things I need, extra float balls, all those stuff. But I have a survival bag. If you come to Alaska, don't ever get in the airplane without your sleeping bag, and make sure you can soak it down and get wet, and it'll keep you warm. Because if it's not that kind, buy something else, because when all else fails, if you're sitting out there on the tundra waiting, you can wrap yourself up in a sleeping bag and wait for the weather. By 10:12, it's time to withdraw to the float shack. And this is actually the pilot room at Copper Valley Air. And this is the boss. And this was kind of a funny thing because we were headed in and I took one step in, I saw him asleep and we backed out and I took the picture and showed it to his wife and she just started laughing because this poor guy, he's a mechanic, he's a pilot, maintenance, and so, he more stress than you can imagine, and this is the one of the few times he actually got sleep for about a 15-day period, so we left him alone. Wash your windows. You need to be able to see out the front, but your passengers deserve having clean windows. Some of them are scratched up, I get it, but wash your windows. And takeoff factor of fuel. This is one of the Copper Valley Air bad things. A lot of times in my world, because I'm not necessarily flying airport to airport, we'll be flying short hops. And I talk about 15-minute hops, and I'm not kidding. We have one airstrip, and it's 600 feet long now. It's at about 4,000 foot elevation. It's called Windy Ridge for good reason. The cabin on the ridge that the guys hunt out of literally has stakes pounded into the ground like that hold telephone poles, guy wires, and it's got cables, about 3/4 inch cables over the top of the building, holding the building down, okay? We take a 5-knot tailwind going into the strip and about 4 knots going out. Usually we have that 3-knot tailwind going in and a 3-knot headwind going out. It's a one-way strip. It's got a cliff on the one end, there's a cliff on the other end, and then a big hill. One of the guides tried to take off uphill one time and thought he would just turn down, and just the little bit of light wind that was coming over there, it caused turbulence, and he ended up in a ball at the bottom of the mountain there. So we fly in and out of this, and we use another strip that we drive an hour out, and if we have a support rig goes out, or we just load the plane up with fuel jugs and we fly them out, drop them off, and it's a 15-minute flight back and forth. The PA-12 flew the hunting crew, and I think it was 4 or 6 guys plus 2 moose out. So he had, I think it was 8 runs that he did. And the guy flight planned, how much does an 0320 160 horse engine burn? Anybody? 8.5 an hour. So he burned 8.5 gallons an hour. The airplane landed less than a mile from the main runway on the way home and went down in a gravel pit and tore the airplane up because the plane was burning 12 gallons an hour. Because you take off, you're full power, you're climbing for 15 minutes, you power back, circle around, and you land. You take off full power with a moose in the airplane, and you're coming down, but you're carrying power to gain speed. The only time you slow down is with antlers on the struts, and I'm guarantee you people that when you fly stuff on your struts, slow down. Snowshoes are a little different, but if you got antlers, slow down, because they'll start walking and they'll tear your struts up. But anyway, so he was burning 12 gallons an hour. He flight planned for the 8.5, and that was not a good scenario in the end. But anyway, so wash your windows, make sure you have enough fuel for the entire mission. And if you do find yourself running low, you try and call the office early so they can send a plane and you don't have to sit there and just wait, but the other plane will arrive with fuel so you can go home and get in trouble earlier in the day. 30 minutes before flight, passengers arrive. I'm using this picture. See that right there? That is a very small load for a beaver. And generally speaking, when you're flying a beaver, our dock is about as big as between the chairs from the back of the room up to this camera area, all right? And if that dock is less than half full, it's a small load. People think that, it's a big space, so we can fill the whole space. And it doesn't matter that it's all nails, or all meat or something. So one of the first things you have to do is observe their gear and go, it's too much. You're gonna have to cut it down and give them time to do that. Your passengers, they're supposed to arrive 30 to 40 minutes before flight. Generally speaking, if they arrive 30 minutes before the flight, They do not have your gear organized. It will take them 20 minutes to organize their gear. It takes 10 minutes to load the airplane. It takes another 5 to get the people in and seat belted, so you're already late. And if you're 5 minutes late on your first flight, you are going to be an hour and a half late by the end of the day. So you size up your stuff and try and get them to organize. You get your passengers loaded, hopefully 10 minutes before your flight. And sometimes you'll have multiple groups, so you have to, kind of plan and think about that. Extra landings, extra fuel. Confirm where they're going. Is there a lost lake here in Minnesota? Is there? Where is it?
Nobody knows.
There's about 5 of them. Exactly. It's so you want to confirm with the people where they're going. And the most fun is when the people go, oh, well, we're going to see such and such, and they're at such and such. A lot of times for the normal clients, I recognize names. I'm like, okay, now I know exactly where you're going, but you really do need to confirm that. And then you also want to look at your trip sheet, because you want to make sure that your trip sheet, that your dispatcher expects you to go west to Lost Lake, and you're actually going to the eastern Lost Lake. You want them to know that you're going east instead. I always like to ask my passengers about air sickness, because every once in a while you get somebody that's very nervous and they're going to get sick, and I like to put the nervous people up in the front seat. For one, I can talk them through, I can watch what they're doing, and you can hand them the sick sack, when you need. The other thing is that if you notice, the aircraft are designed that the the pilot seats are usually the most stable. Everything else is on a lever. So something to think about. And then brief your passengers on safety. I like to do it eye to eye. So if I see that questioning thing, especially talking about seatbelts, you want seatbelts tight. There's plenty of accident reports that show people slid out of seatbelts. And you want to watch them check their seatbelt, because it's amazing how many people will nod their heads and their seatbelt will just be laying there loose. And it's your responsibility as the pilot to make sure they're wearing it. All right. Weather begins to improve. Get your fuel in for your first trip. Any extra stuff, remember the takeoff factor. Clean your windshield. Notice I'm really heavy on cleaning windshield. And you want to have something, a lot of people use Pledge. Pledge works great when it's sunny. If you're going to get rainstorms and thunder showers and things like that, you want something better. I like Plexus. It works for about 2 to 3 hours of heavy rain, and then it's gone. It won't shed water as well. Rain-X works great. Okay, Rain-X you have to put on when it's dry. Plexus you can actually even if it's a little bit damp, you can get it to work. Passengers are always going to arrive late. They're not going to have their gear ready. So you want to get as much gear as you can in the airplane. Make sure their sleeping bags are in there, and leave the excess baggage. Again, confirm with the passengers and office of where you're going. There we go. Confirm passengers where you're going. This is this guy was running the Fish and Game Hunter education stuff, and he was down doing some classes. And one afternoon, I'm like, "Hey, want to go for a trip?" Sure. He hops in. You can see he wasn't exactly dressed to be out in the snow. So this is kind of a fun shot to show. This is on the top of the Mendenhall Glacier, about 10 miles from the Juneau Airport. But this is what happens every once in a while. Everybody's confused. Everybody thinks we're all going to the right spot, and you land there and they look around, they go, nope, not where I'm supposed to be. Arrival at the destination. Fly over your landing area, look around. The photograph should say it all. I'm standing on the Beaver taking this picture. That's as close as I could get the aircraft, and we literally had to pump up the silly raft and load the raft and tow the raft back and forth, because when I stepped off the Beaver, I went to my knees in mud. This particular lake, we had never used it before. When I got originally hired by the company, the conversation happened, and I remember the boss looking at me and going, "That's why I hired you. You have 10 times the float time that I have." So he had 10,000 hours of Beaver time, and he had like 100 hours of float time in the Beaver. He had flown it all wheels, and tried to take it off like it was on wheels too, with the nose up in the air. But anyway, so these guys really wanted to go to this one area, and I'm like, yep, I can get you in there. I can get you out. Might take a couple trips, but I can get you in there. I did not calculate the fact it was going to be muddy. So this lake is hereby known as No-No Lake anymore, or, you know, to this day, it's listed on our charts as No-No Lake. It's like, no, don't go there, and no, you really don't want to show anybody this lake. And we, by the time we were done with this particular day, there was a lot of mud on the airplane. And these guys, they had a lot of fun. They really were glad that they got in there. But overfly to check where you're going to go, if they're camping, where you're going to camp. Look at the docking situation, the beaching situation. With a fixed wing or with a wheel plane, look at where you're going to park, how you're going to get in and get out of there without blowing rocks on everything, without getting your plane stuck in mud, without some other idiot pulling in front of you and blocking your airplane and running off, and now all of a sudden you got a plane sitting in front of your airplane blocking the taxiway. Vehicles, or look for critters, look for vehicles. I've had snow machines. One time I'm landing just outside of Bethel on Paca. I'm going into Paca, and I'm watching, and I'm like, that guy doesn't even know I'm here. And sure enough, as I'm landing, I'm watching this, and I accelerated a little bit, and I literally landed right next to him and right behind me, and he was starting to make the cut, and he passed behind me about 10 feet. And I don't know if you're following, but we just had a fatality on a 206 landing in Nanwalek where a dog ran out on the runway, and they did a go around that didn't work out so well. So look for that stuff. Vehicles are bad. Arrival and shutdown, unload your passengers, unload your cargo, check your float lockers. It's embarrassing to have the guy's chainsaw gas in your float when he went out to cut survey line, and you're back at home, and it's 6 o'clock at night, and you're like, uh-oh, I gotta go back flying. Check your float lockers, wing lockers. Navajo chieftains have wing lockers. If you're in a hurry and you forget there's a wing locker on the other side and you didn't check it, that can be embarrassing. Clean out the airplane. There's earplugs on the floor, there's 6-axes, all that stuff. Go through, clean up your airplane, make it look good, and reposition the seat belts. I like to buckle my belts together and put them around the corner, or have them laying cross each other, because it looks better. More professional, even though I'm a bush pilot. Reload the plane again and again and again. Beaver, we would carry 12 to 1,400 pounds, which is why Beaver pilots have bad backs, and because you're bent over. And you do this, and you want to walk around the plane before you start, if you can, if you're on wheels especially, because things happen, and people park their snow-go, or their children walk out around in the villages. The dogs lay down and go to sleep right underneath your propellers, because that's the only shade sometimes. So you want to walk around your airplane, look for all these things. My wife did this. This is a friend of mine's set of antlers. That was his second day of moose hunting in his whole life. He always wanted to go moose hunting. And I called this moose in, and it showed only one half of the antlers, and I'm like, shoot it. He's like, I can't see the other antler. I said, yeah, I don't know if it's legal. I'm like, shoot it. It's got to be 50 inches. I'm like, Dave, I'll tag the thing. Shoot the moose. So he shoots the moose, and he walks up to it, and his... It was 63 or 64 inch wide rack, and it hung at the Baranoff Brewery in Sitka. But anyway, so my wife put this on MacGyvered, because sometimes you just have to strut your stuff. When you get out there and you're picking up a load and you're looking at the load, there are some weird things that happen. In Alaska, we are allowed to get a permit to carry external loads. And I've carried 10-foot plywood on the spreader bars of a Super Cub. I have carried antlers on 180 end struts. I've carried antlers on the lift struts of an aircraft. I'm going to tell you that they all fly different. If you ever go to fly a boat with a square stern on it, you put the square stern forward. Do not put it towards the tail. It will stall your tail out and make it a very uncomfortable ride. But you can kill yourself doing external loads. Just letting you know. And that was my Cub. Again, sometimes you got to look at your landing areas. I looked it over, I saw the rocks, the lake's low, and as I taxied in, that's what we found. And this is opening morning of moose season, and you can't fly and hunt the same day. We pulled, weather wasn't good enough to fly in the day before, and I flew the guys in, and you can see unload. We pulled the boat out to the plane and thrown our gear in that and taken it out. But as we pulled up, I'm looking at this rock, and I'm like, the water's not low. There's no rocks here. What in the world? And finally I noticed it had an antler sticking out. This bull moose, and it was still warm. This bull moose had died within just a couple of hours of our arrival. And we started calling Fish and Game Wildlife, and they actually allowed us to salvage that moose. So, but you never know what you're going to see in flying air taxis. Again, walk around the airplane. You might have help. And, look before, and I'm standing on my float taking this picture. This is one of my photographs. What you don't see is his two little brothers right next to him. And while this seems like a really cute and interesting picture, you were up there that summer when I was taking this, and this is just down by from Brooks Camp at Margot. And what goes along with that little guy right there? Mama. All right. My chief pilot one time had one of these guys messing around his airplane, and he, get out of here. And it walked off, and he went back to reading. And he heard it coming up onto the float plane again. And this was at Brooks. And he unlocked the door and just left the door, and it was sitting there. He was sitting in the back seat, and he waited. And when the cub stuck his head up in the window, he went boom with the door. And that bear let out a squeal and went end over end, lands down in the water next to the airplane. And he's smiling, thinking he was a great thing. And he hears this, and he looks back, and the sow is looking him eye to eye. And he said, without doing anything else, she told me, buddy, if you ever do anything to my cub again, I am going to turn your airplane into tinfoil. So, be aware. I told you would see these guys again, that they had a really, really fun time. This is the guys with the raft. And they were out there for 5 days, and I think it was 3 trips I flew out to get them and their caribou. Actually, no, it only took me 2 trips to get out of that no-no lake because I had a little bit of a breeze. And we used bananaed around the lake, and then there was a shallow, narrow area. I was up on step, and as I hit the shallows, if you don't run river boats and stuff, one of the things is as the water gets shallower, the water won't compress, and it'll hold your help you plane. So if you're like can't quite get on step, you work into shallows, and it'll get you up. Well, it'll also push your floats right out of the water. So I'd get up on one float and come into the shallows, and it'd send me into the air, and then just kept going down through the low stuff, and was able to get them out in 2 loads. And those guys were absolutely ecstatic. And those are pretty darn nice caribou for that area. So that's, some days being an air taxi pilot's good. And then we got the lodge. All right. So this is a retirement job. All right. I will absolutely admit to you that there is nothing better than having somebody give you an airplane to fly, to go out to world-class fishing areas and make you stand by for multiple hours while they go downriver, and you can go upriver and go fishing. It's like a dream come true. So the fun part is I go ride on the Alaska Airlines, and if it comes up, the other pilot, well, what do you do? Well, I fly for Lodge. Oh my God, that's what I want to do. All the guys that are flying for UPS and all that, I sit down in Wasilla. My friend lives up there, and he's got all these airline pilots, and all they tell me is how they want my job. So I think it's the perfect retirement job. 6 o'clock in the morning, again, common theme. Wake up, have the radio wake you up, nice pleasant thing, check the weather from bed, go to the kitchen, and by 6:30 you get dressed, go to the kitchen, I make my tea, wander down to the float plane and do my pre-flight with nobody around. It's all quiet, enjoy myself. Naturally, I fed the dog, by the way. By 7 o'clock, I'm up there and sitting back, and the chef lays breakfast out. And it's like, oh, well, George, I know you're allergic to coffee, so we made this coffee cake for you without the coffee in it. Awesome, that's great. I drink tea, by the way. 7:20, I go put my waders on, and you hear guys wearing hip boots, flying beavers. I'm always out pushing them around, and I like to sit on logs, so I wear chest waders, and I stay dry all day long. 7:45, get that engine fired off, get it warmed up, because you don't want to have clients in the airplane while you're warming up for 10 minutes on a beaver. Get her shut down. But while you're warming your engines, the guides, they come down and they bring all their heavy gear and get it done. If they've got rafts, they wait till I shut down or do it earlier. They put the rafts on, they strap them down. My job, yep, that's tight. Yep, that's tight. Oh, hey guys, this one, throw another strap on that. That's my job. I don't have to touch anything. At 8 o'clock, or we get the clients loaded up, 7:55. And in between this, at one point, the dock hand has come, pumped my floats out. Did I say retirement job here, guys? And then I get in there, and I'm like the big 747 captain. I'm like, good to go. He unties me, dock hand turns me out, gives me the nod, I fire the engine off, I start taxiing out. I mean, it's just like having a ground crew here. And then take off. Go to a fishing hole, and sometimes, literally, it's 15 minutes of flying, okay? I'm not time building, so 15 minutes of flying, you land in some really cool spot. Bristol Bay is a little crowded. You might have 3 or 4 other airplanes, and if you're at Crosswind Lake, I think I counted 19 airplanes there at one time. But anyway, so you go, the clients get off. The guides, and if you're in swift water, the guides will actually get out on your float before you shut down behind the struts. And you pull up and they'll jump off and they'll hold your plane in place while everything's spooling down, and you wander off like a very relaxed individual. And sometimes, I usually try and help load and unload planes with the clients, but get the plane unloaded, the clients, they go off, they go rafting or whatever they're gonna do. And I'm in standby mode now. All I have to do is kick back, tell the boss that I've landed safely, the clients are away, and I go fishing. So, there we go. Okay, what really happens? Wake up, feed the dog, take the shower, prep the gear bag, do my pre-flight, wash the windows, have breakfast, waiter up. This again is up by, this me just hanging out up on the Mendenhall Glacier, but this is how relaxed it is on a normal day, seriously. And then 7:45, warm up the plane, 7:55, load the clients. As you can see, this client was enjoying the view. The dock hand clears, gets me started, turned out. I go at 8:05, fuel, flaps, and flippers. Checklist, beaver takeoff checklist. Fuel, flaps, and flippers. There's your beaver training for the day. If you get those 3, you'll stay alive. If you forget one of those, it's going to be an interesting takeoff, or you're going to be running for a long ways down the water without getting off the water. So, remind passengers, do not push a camera in your face. Did you ever get to go to Moraine Creek and see Moraine Creek? Okay. So Moraine Creek is this stream that we drop people off up the river. They raft down and we pick them up down the river. And I think it's Kukaklik Lake is where they come out. Great big huge lake. As you probably know, being from Minnesota, a big lake means when you have a little bit of wind, the waves get very, very big. So we land up in the creek. Now, as typical creeks go, or as typical water goes in Alaska when you have confined spaces, they always form a sandbar. So on the main landing area, you've got a sandbar in the middle. So you come down, you touch, you step taxi over top of the sandbar, and then you pull the power back and set down. Now, of course, to add to it, the sandbar is only on one half and then gets deeper by the other bank. So what you have to do is you literally stick your wing over top of the branches. Usually early in the season, the guys take branches and they put branches in the super shallows so you don't go over that. And so you kind of do this, back and forth across. So taking off, you start At the end of that, you get her up on step, go over top of the gravel bar, and you're powering back at this point, keeping her on step. You hang a 90-degree left-hand corner and then go out into the lake for your takeoff, for the rest of your takeoff. Or if the wind is wrong, the wind is coming straight out the other way where you don't really want to go out into the lake, you go up around the next corner and you come out and around. And the width of the water is about the width of the hanger here. And so when you're coming around these step turns, your wing is over the bank on one side or the other. And when you go around the sandbar and doing the sandbar, you're sticking your left wing over the bank. And there'll be places that it's cut off. So it doesn't sound like it's that bad, but when you're in the middle of a step turn and you're literally hanging a wing over this bank, hard in left-hand step turn, and making sure that you're not too far to the left because it gets shallow. It's a big big shallow spot bar on the corner. And I had a guy reach one of his GoPro camera right across in front of my face to video what was on the left. So from that day on, I make a very big deal to people about do not bother me, do not talk to me unless something's going to happen, we're going to die. Don't talk to me. Don't put a camera in the face. And they're like, well, can we video the camera? And if they say that, I say, yeah, you cannot turn it this way. You can video straight and turned, or if I have a yoke, I just tell them no. So the yoke on that side. So this became a safety problem. And another time I had just broken water on that particular straight stretch. And when you come over the other side, when you come off the other side, you're about 10 feet over the brush on that after that first step turn. And I had a guy, as soon as I broke water, look at that bear over there right in front of me. And anyway, so that's a brown bear. Again, when you're beaching and stuff, you want to make sure you don't pull your clients right up into a brown bear, or they're not swimming around when you taxi in. Taxi parking area, mind guides not to get in front of the struts. Skier, unload the plane. Sys guides getting out. Happy clients leave bigger tips. That's my big fish, by the way. That's a 27-incher. Monitor weather all day long. Make sure, call the day early if you have to. Sometimes we hang out and chat with pilots. If we have to reposition for pickup, get the plane down there a little bit early, because sometimes the clients and guides come out early. If the weather is bad or if the guys are late, sometimes you have to rush your guides and get them to put stuff together really, really quickly. And then get to the lodge on time. You got to get back. The cooks are holding dinner, and you always want to keep them happy. In the time off, repack your day bag, repair your waders. Waders are very important. Tie flies, watch movies, tie more flies, play bagpipes, and sleep. Just as my own shameless commerce, that photograph was taken by the Sage Fly Rod media team. They were up there. We had a foggy day. They'd heard me play, and they're like, hey, we should go take pictures of the planes in the fog. And the head guy was like, yeah, we should take pictures of the planes in the fog with the bagpipes. Go get your bagpipes. So that actually made Instagram. So that's kind of what it's like up there. And this photograph here is in Bethel. It went to 20 below. That's a sealskin hat, beaver mittens, and wool pants. And that's what I had to wear to stay warm. My name and address, phone number, emails. If you have any questions or anything, I will be over at the Minnesota Pilots Association booth here in about 5 minutes, and or catch me. I'll be here all day. Thank you.